Our laws stem mostly from orange. That means that even in an integral society, yellow or higher, there will still be pockets or subcultures of individuals at purple, red, blue, orange, and green. This is not only unavoidable, it is healthy, normal, desirable. What is not desirable, however, is that any of those waves dominate the governance system and therefore attempt to force their values on others, whether those are red values, blue values, or green values. A yellow society, in short, would have laws that basically stem from that second-tier level of consciousness. And the basic defining characteristic of yellow is that it accepts all previous values without letting any of them repress or dominate others. A second-tier, integral world federation, in my utopian view, would therefore prevent any first-tier memes from dominating, attacking, or exploiting any other populations. If necessary, a world federation would do so by using force, just as all democracies today have an internal police force to curtail murder, rape, robbery, extortion, and so on. Somebody whose center of gravity is green will not commit murder, rape, or robbery. However, somebody whose center of gravity is red will do any or all of those, sometimes happily. And because everybody is born at square one and must progress through purple, red, blue, and so on, some sort of police will always be necessary to protect others from those who do not evolve to a world-centric level of care and compassion. So any world federation would have some sort of police force of necessity. Call them the world cops. Needless to say, the world cops would be regulated by the World Federation, not by any country, and certainly not by America, Britain, France, Germany, and so on. This police force is not allowed to tell people what level of consciousness they should be at. It is not allowed to govern what individuals do in the privacy of their own homes or dwellings. It is not allowed to coerce or intimidate people who are not at the average level of social development. It is, however, allowed to prevent or punish those whose public behavior stems from a less than world-centric stance. For example, in the privacy of my own home, if I wish to think about burning at the stake all people who do not accept Jesus as their personal Savior, that is my right. However, if I actually shoot you because you do not believe in Jesus, then the state, in this case the World Federation, can arrest and incarcerate me. The simple rule, which is already implicitly used by all world-centric governance systems, i.e. at orange or higher, including Germany, France, America, Britain, Japan, etc., is this. In the left-hand domain, think what you like, but in the right-hand domain, physically behave according to world-centric law, or you can be removed from the public sphere. As we were saying, in Western democracies, the law of the land is largely orange. In the last 30 years, this has been supplemented with an increasing number of laws drawn from the green wave, including equality in the workplace laws, health care freedom laws, and anti-hate laws. Those mean, for example, that you are allowed to hate homosexuals in the privacy of your own left-hand mind, but if you publicly, right-hand, express that hatred, e.g. through hate speech, there are penalties for doing so. Thus, in many Western democracies, free speech, a classic orange value, and in this country, a First Amendment freedom, has often been supplemented with limitations on free speech, a classic green value. Green wishes to limit speech, not in accord with its own values. My only point is that both of those express the implicit rule I stated in the previous paragraph, namely, think what you like, but behave according to public law. An integral world federation would therefore, in that regard, be no different. One could think whatever one wanted, but one must behave according to laws stemming from the center of gravity of the governance system, in this case, yellow. Thus, the values embedded in the law of the land would not be orange or green, but yellow or integral. Not first tier, but second tier. Accordingly, although individuals are again allowed to think or believe whatever they want, left hand, their public behavior, right hand, would be regulated according to yellow or higher standards. Because the major stance of yellow is integrative, this means all first-tier value systems would have a respected place, but no first-tier values would be allowed to colonize others. This would mean, for example, that America is allowed to despise Iraq in the privacy of its own left-hand national cultural space. America is not, however, allowed to attack Iraq in the right-hand public international commons. But that is only half the story of what would not be allowed by any integral world federation. Saddam Hussein, by conservative and uncontested estimates, has murdered approximately 200,000 Kurds and another 200,000 of his own people, often after torturing, raping, gassing them. Any integral world federation would, through use of force if necessary, prevent both of those actions. Neither of those actions meet yellow standards, and therefore neither would be allowed under yellow world law. America's invasion of Iraq meets certain blue to orange standards, and the action of Saddam Hussein meets certain red standards. Neither of them would be allowed by an integral world federation. Moreover, it goes without saying that the World Federation would itself invade and police Iraq if incontrovertible evidence of mass homicide was presented at a World Federation hearing. Mass homicide anywhere violates world-centric values. Saddam Hussein is allowed to hate the Kurds in the privacy of his own red meme mind. He is not allowed to gas 200,000 of them. If he did so, the World Federation police would use military action to prevent Saddam Hussein from continuing to do so if he did not voluntarily cease and desist immediately. For the same reasons, I personally believe that any protest movement that does not equally protest both America's invasion and Saddam's murder of 400,000 people is a protest movement that does not truly represent peace or non-aggression or world-centric values. I am aware of no major protest movement that has protested both forms of violence equally and that has insisted upon an immediate end to both aggressions and offered a believable way that both aggressions could actually be halted immediately so that neither side can continue its homicidal actions. That is, I am aware of no integral protest movement anywhere in the world, unfortunately. There are instead mainly pockets of blue, orange, and green values, all at each other's throats. There's no mistaking Mr. Bush's values. They're essentially blue to orange. It is the deeply fundamentalistic, absolutistic values of Bush that alarm many other governments, particularly those of France, Germany, and Russia, and understandably so. The blue wave typically divides the world into good versus evil, and has an unshakable, if ethnocentric sense of right and wrong. Bush's axis of evil is classic blue. The worst that can be said of Bush's essentially blue approach is that, indeed, it is deeply ethnocentric and imperialistic. The best that can be said is that it takes blue to curtail red, and Bush's actions are serving the larger spiral by rooting out pockets of red terrorism. The other major faction in the debate is essentially representing green values. The green wave, what Claire Graves called the sensitive self, wishes to end all war and thus must see itself as anti-war under virtually any circumstances. However, because it often takes war to end war, e.g., it takes World War II to end Auschwitz, green is often paralyzed in the face of real-world aggression, insisting on lying down in front of Nazi tanks as if that would actually stop them. But as long as green can see itself protesting aggression, it is relatively content. The worst that can be said of these protesters is that they are essentially Saddam enablers, in exactly the same way Neville Chamberlain was a Hitler enabler. The best that can be said is that these individuals serve the larger spiral by sensitizing people more to the horrors of aggression. As for world leaders, are any taking something resembling an integral view? The only world leader who comes close, in my opinion, is Tony Blair. Blair, virtually alone, it seems to me, holds the multifarious sides fairly in awareness and draws conclusions and courses of action based on a bigger picture. He has insisted that the entire Iraqi situation be set in the context of a two-nation policy with regard to Palestine and Israel, thus giving the Arab nations something in return, so to speak, but something they should be given in any event, a Palestinian state as an intrinsic part of the Mideast package, starting now. Blair almost single-handedly